when you see the behavior that you want, if you praise it and make a big deal out of it, as simple as some things may be, you'll see that kid's confidence skyrocket.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
Today we are joined by the head boys basketball coach of Enka High School in North Carolina, Brian Carver. Coach Carver is the all-time winningest coach in school history with 258 wins. He has 31 years of coaching experience and is a member of the North Carolina Basketball Association Executive Board. He's also the host of the Elevation Basketball Podcast. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
How are you, my friend?
Oh, well, I just got back from Chapel Hill, Chapel Thrill, since we're in the Final Four.
Wow.
We had a Basketball Coaches Association board meeting all day yesterday, so get back, and now it's about 24 hours of playing catch-up.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's awesome, though. Very cool.
It's a fun time to be around a bunch of other coaches.
Tell me what you think about this. I had a kind of a mind shift 3 or 4 years ago. One was I had one exceptional player, like a very high level. He's actually he walked on to SMU, and then halfway through this past season, earned a scholarship. So, and without, I mean, if there weren't 1,000 people in the portal and every team full right now, he would have been a scholarship player coming out of high school anyway. But that's just that's kind of where a lot of these kids are right now.
Exactly.
But because I had him and he was playing such high level select ball, I took the approach of, and still today, after our last game, I tell my guys, faith basketball is done. Like we're over, because I've fallen into the trap of, hey, first day of spring, whenever that is, we're getting prepared for next season. And we start talking about faith basketball again. So it's almost like they're year round with us. But here's the thing: select ball, we don't want them to work with our guys in season. Right? Like give us our time, stay away. But then when it's spring and summer, that's you. But then all of a sudden they're in this spring, summer season with another team, another coach. And yet we're still telling them, hey, but it's faith basketball time. And we're still working. So I've taken the approach of our spring and summer is a supplement to their select seasons, which means we're not going to do spring or summer league. We're not going to, I'm not going to do anything after school. Everything, it's going to be open weight room before. Everything during our athletic period is going to be geared towards the fact that you probably just had a tournament with 8 games. And so on the Monday you come back, I'm not going to kill you. We're not going to work on defense at all, because our defense is 8 months away for faith basketball.
Absolutely.
My goal is to get you to be as healthy and as strong and as skilled as possible during this time. That's been the approach. And I feel sometimes some push and pull, or that coaches may have another view of it because of maybe tradition. Like, what about rebounds and blocking out and defense? Yeah. Not now, but that's just my feeling.
I would 100% agree. I kind of take it with my players all the time. I talk to them a lot about, November to January, February, if we're fortunate enough to play in March, we're going to be about our team. But when we hit April to basically October, that's your time to develop and to get yourself prepared for you. And if we're fortunate enough to have players that are good enough to play at the next level in college, they've got to showcase that and get on that. And then my job is to supplement that. And if I want the AAU travel world to respect my world and then I've got to do the same to them. And I can't get mad at a kid if he says, Coach, I can't be at your workout tonight because I've got AAU practice. I know coaches that are like that. I know plenty of some of my friends are like that. And I'm kind of like, no, go play your AAU because you got a big tournament this weekend. Go do whatever you got to do. I'm just getting here knocking some shots up for kids that don't have that opportunity. So our big push is, I think you hit the nail on the head. Our big push has always been get you in the weight room, put you in some small group work, and work on some skill development things. I don't know how it is in your state, but in North Carolina, we get to do some things in the summertime that are kind of team oriented. Like there's no rules per se in terms of how many kids I can have. I just can't tell a kid he can't come.
Right.
So we do the team camp circuit, if you will. But I try to take about 2 weeks of that. And during that 2 weeks, I try to just use that more of an evaluate. Like I love what you said about the defense. In those 2 weeks last summer, and we just won 25 games and went to the 4th round of the state playoffs. I'm telling you, we did not play a single possession of defense in any one of those practices. Not one. Now, we would go play in games, and obviously, and I'm talking to them about rotations and where they got to be and things of that nature. But we spent that time as a team bonding, kind of figuring some things out chemistry-wise, who fits better where. And then, I'm spitballing some stuff, throwing it against the wall in those 2 weeks in ball games, doing some stuff I know I probably wouldn't do during the season just to see what it looked like, experimenting with some rotational things and things and how kids would adjust to that. And it was all kind of going into a file. And then once November I had some experience come back. So you remember back in the summer when we tried this, it didn't work. Here's why, and then we spent more time obviously working on our defense once the season started. But yeah, you can't grind away on defensive stuff right now because they don't care.
Yeah, I think you and I could probably have an hour-long talk about Mark Hart. He runs system basketball.
Yes.
He put out a message the other day about an article about defense wins championships ? And I don't know how many people listen to this podcast, but I'm probably going to lose half of them right here. The whole point is if you look at the top 20 offensive teams in efficiency in college basketball, the majority of them not only made the tournament, but they're the ones that are still playing, like in the Sweet 16. The top 20 defensive efficient teams in that rating, only 2 or 3 of them were in that Sweet 16. Like Houston was one of those few teams that was better defensively in rating than they were offensively. But I just, the whole idea of defense wins championships, or that we need to be working on that all year long. I just think the offensive side
I agree.
is harder. You have to spend a little bit more time acquiring those skills. And there's this whole idea of fun that's out there, which I don't think we can forget.
Well, to me, and I think this is, I don't know, there's no formula or recipe, but a lot of defensive stuff just comes down to who's tougher, and mentality and less technique. Obviously, that's important. I'm not going to try to say it's not. But if you can get your kids to believe and play a certain toughness and a mindset about defense, there's no real skill involved in that. It's, obviously there's some, like I said, rotational things that you need to be aware of. And philosophically, you need to kind of be in line with what you want them to do. But really, it's more about a mindset and how hard you can get your kids to play. Kelvin's got that one figured out.
Yeah, that's true. And we can't get it twisted. It can't be 100%. I'm talking in season, 100% focus on offense and none on defense.
Correct.
You're not giving effort, and if your goal isn't to get stops on the defensive end, you probably won't win many games. You'll only be able to outscore lesser opponents. But when you're 8 months away, what should we be focusing on with our time? Especially since players really, especially those players that do have aspirations to play after high school, they have 2 seasons now. They have their school season and their select season. And I just think sometimes I'm guilty of those things bleeding together, and where it's really, golly, are we in season all year long? No. and this is a time where a lot of coaches are evaluating what they did during the season, trying to go out and find new things that they want to add to their tool belt, that they want to incorporate with their team. What are some opportunities for learning and growth that you've found recently?
Dude, I'm just going to be honest with you. And I know from a financial standpoint, this probably scares a lot of high school coaches off. And I tweeted it out the other day about it. But a college friend of mine, college buddy of mine, actually, he and I went back and forth about some stuff that we ran offensively and where I learned it from. And I said, well, we've always done it that way. But what I found was the missing link that helped me connect our layers in our offense. And we run a hybrid version of the Princeton. always have on some level. But I was in years past, it was always we ran this layer, and that was all we ran. Or we ran it. And this year I was able to connect the layers because of something that I learned. Well, where did I learn that? Twofold. And I think that goes back to answering your question.
Yep.
One, I spent a lot of time with people who are in the know, who run similar systems, and I would call them up and have a conversation. Not to over promote anything. I do a podcast on some small level.
You can promote it. Yeah.
That's the Elevation Basketball Podcast. And doing some research for that, I would have conversations with coaches, college coaches, high school coaches, and kind of file away some of the stuff. And then I strategically made a list of 6 or 8 people that I wanted to talk to via Zoom or phone or in person, and I would try to sit down with them, and I would have a specific set of questions that I wanted to ask them, and then I would just kind of let them talk. Tell me about your stuff, and just try to pick up on what they were doing. And then the most important discovery for me, which is part 2 to answering your question, man, I hope I don't get in trouble for this. But I have a former player of mine who played at the collegiate level. He decided to step away from basketball and just go be a student, which I can respect that, and that's his decision, and I'm with him on that 100%. But while he was playing, he was home one day on a break or something, and he was trying to talk to me about a set they ran because their offense, they had some Princeton elements in their offense as well. And he pulled up on Synergy, his Synergy account, and he was showing me some stuff they did and how it broke it down. I was like, oh my. Yeah. And when I saw that, I was like, dude, so I just kept using his Synergy login. And all summer long, all off season long, I used that Synergy to study different coaches, different styles, different teams. And I got almost addicted to it. I mean, I was trying to set a goal that I would watch no more than an hour a day, because there were some days when I was watching 2 and 3 hours of film on sometimes a full game. And there were a lot of times where I would click on a game, and then in the Synergy you can do this, click on the offensive possessions. And then sometimes I would go, I just want to see their transition possessions. How do they get into their transition? I just click on the transitions, and there's all 1,700 transition possessions they had the whole season, and you're just boom, and it just one thing led to another, and I'm just I saw that team running this, and then so I think Synergy became a godsend for me in my studying and my ability to learn and put concepts together. It was just really great, and I would say I undervalued. I don't want to say devalued. But I undervalued the importance of film study.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure that I knew how to do it the right way, and I still don't know that I'm on the right path. I mean, I'm on the right path, but I don't know if I'm not at enlightenment yet. I don't know where that is.
I don't know if there's a right or a wrong way to do that. I think one danger that I run into sometimes is, so we definitely want to look at what we did last year and keep some of those things that work really well, maybe discard some things that we just never, here's an action we just never scored off of. I never felt like my guys were comfortable, or I never even went to it. We take those away. And then when you start to accumulate all of this new knowledge, these new plays and actions, you also have to be careful. Like, you can't do everything, because there's so many times I'll watch a video and I'll be like, that looks really good. Then I have to ask those questions. Will that work with my personnel? Do we have the time? Do the players have the bandwidth to incorporate something like that? So I think, like United Basketball Plus, I just had the chance to talk to Matt Smith with them. Did a great job. He's going to have like 600 videos out there. When I hear that number, I'm like, oh, how can I go through all of them? Well, you just got to be careful. You just got to be careful.
It's like a buffet, I want a little bit of all of it.
Yeah. You can't do everything, and I'm a subscriber to actually want to be really basic and try to be really good with the basic things that we do. But there is so much great information out there.
What you said there, to some advice to my own self, was that while I'm spending all that time studying and watching film because I got addicted to it, I try not to shove it down my assistants' throats, because they have lives and families and things they want to do too. But what I would do is I would clip things. I would show them, I'd video with my cell phone. Hey, look at this. And I would just send them nuggets here and there. And occasionally, not a ton, not as much as people might think, I would find something that, like in our workouts that we were talking about, in our 3-man workouts, 4-man workouts, 3-man actions, and our ball screen actions, or I would see somebody do it in a game situation, and I would just clip that and send it to our kids. But I tried not to overwhelm our kids with that stuff. I had somebody call me after our 3rd round playoff game, and they were like, "Really, I really like what you do on offense. You guys do some really good stuff." He said, "How do your kids know to do all that stuff?" And I said, "Well, first and foremost, they didn't do it all at once. The last element that you see now that you are asking about, we literally it's been in on some level. We just released them to go do it about 2 weeks ago, and it transformed everything. It made all the other stuff look great, but you're right. There's sensory overload. There's too much. So we learned one part of it, and that's all we worked on. And we didn't even talk like there was anything else. And then once they got to where that was comfortable and almost boring, then we would kind of sprinkle in another layer, and so forth. So it was probably a 1.5-year process with this group, getting them to run all the different things and the elements of the offense that we wanted them to run. We didn't shove it to them all at once, even though I was studying it that way.
Yeah. I think we got to remember to be teachers as coaches. Tommy Brackle is a guy in my area, DFW, that coaches at North Crowley. I mean, that's just like 25 years, 24 years winning district, like at this school, like that he's at. It's just incredible. But he made a great comment about how in education, they're constantly trying to learn and get better about ways to teach the information that their students will really grasp. We got to do that as coaches, not just throw so much at them, layer things, play small-sided games, learn these concepts, and then be able to stack on top of each other. I think there's times when I'm the most frustrated as a coach is when I realize I haven't taught something very well.
Yeah, exactly. And I know, I think this is probably one of the things I think you were going to ask me later on, maybe in this, but when I was a younger coach, I looked at our practice plans and it was like, there's 30 minutes of offense, there's 30 minutes of defense, there's 30 minutes to inbounds plays. Well, I think the more you can get creative and blend those with small-sided games, you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. In the decision-making process, the learning curve is so much faster and permanent, really. It sticks. So we spent a lot more time in that realm, where yes, there's the emphasis of this drill may be more defense, but there's an offense and a defense to all of it.
25 wins, the best season that your school's ever had. That doesn't happen by accident. Or rarely are teams or programs successful, and they don't know why. So what are some of the standards or pillars of your program?
I've never been a rules guy. I'll be honest with you, I'm gonna back up a step. I'm not even really that big of a Duke fan. I respect Coach K and what he's done, no question about it. But I'm a Carolina guy, hard and fast, tried and true. But with that being said, Coach K was one of the first coaches I remember when I was formative years coaching, and was talking about, we don't have rules, we have standards that we live by, and we let those standards dictate and govern everything that we do, and that's more us. And when I say them, some people say, "Well, that's a rule." It's not a rule; it's a standard. It's a style that we're going to live up to. It's not necessarily a rule. And I took away any of the consequential things like if you do this, you do that. If you do this, you do that. And if you miss a practice, you got 100 miles. And if we don't do any of that stuff. We have standards, and our standards are our pillars, and that's what we live by. We call it our honor code. And when you commit an honor code violation, we have an honor code committee made up of the coaching staff and a player from every grade level.
Oh, wow.
We all sit down in a room and we discuss the honor code violation. We bring the player in, let them have a chance to kind of explain their side of it. And then together collectively as a group, when there is an honor code violation, we handle that and deal out punishment that's fitting and according. We don't have a rules sheet that we go down. Well, he did this, so he's automatically going over here to that. There's too many times we find ourselves in those where we have to enforce rules that we know that we can't or don't want to.
Yeah.
So we have these standards that we live up to. And the first one and foremost that we go by is we communicate. Thou shalt communicate.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of forms. And the biggest lesson that I kind of had to learn is that's a two-way street. Communication isn't just the players communicating to me. It's me communicating to the players, communicating to our parents, communicating to our administration what's going on and where we're at. So that's big for us. And when something arises with one of our players, and 9 times out of 10 we can trace it back. Well, did you communicate? Did you communicate that with somebody? No, coach, I didn't. So you just committed an honor code violation. All right. So the result was you missed practice, or you were late to practice, or you got an F on an exam, or whatever. But ultimately, it boils back to you didn't communicate. So that's first and foremost there. The one that we probably, if there is one that's a little more concrete, it would be number 2, and that is we are on time. If you're 10 minutes early, you're 5 minutes late. I am a stickler for being on time. I can't stand being late. It's probably my biggest pet peeve. I would err on the side of being somewhere an hour early before I would ever be 2 minutes late.
Yeah.
It drives my wife crazy sometimes because, I'm like, my daughter plays college basketball and I want to get there an hour and 10, 15, 20 minutes before they play. She's like, why do we need to get, we're the only people sitting in the arena. I'm early. That's just the way I am. And so I don't deal real well. Probably the times I lose my mind the most is when our kids are not on time and where they're supposed to be before they're supposed to be there. So that's pillar number 2.
There's a huge respect factor though with that, with the being on time, and that was one of the gold standard book about when Coach K took over the Olympic team, and one of the things that him and all the pros that he had put together this list of standards that they were going to live by, and one of the big ones was we're going to be on time. I think not only is it a respect factor for others to show them that you respect their time, it also enables your players to be at their very, very best, because we know that anytime we're late, the feeling of anxiety, unpreparedness that you have, so I love that standard because it's not just showing respect, but it's also allowing them to be their very best.
And this group, which may be a result of one of the reasons why we won 25 games and had the season we had, most of the time, I'm the guy that gets to the gym an hour at least. If I haven't gotten stuff from school that I have to be here the whole time, if I leave, go get something to eat, come back, I want to be at the gym 45 minutes to an hour before I expect the kids to be there. And sometimes I would be getting here and over half my team is already here.
Nice.
Sitting in the locker room, ready to go, dressed. Some of them might go up and shoot if there was a goal open, if they had that opportunity to do that. But I love that about it. And then we have number 3, which is probably the one that gets violated the most, and probably we wouldn't most of the times, we wouldn't call an honor code committee meeting over this one, but it is a standard that we live by, is don't make excuses. If there's a situation that comes up and you screwed up, own it. Don't ever, which goes to the last one of these, is don't ever lie. Never tell us a lie. No excuses, and don't lie. Those are 2 big. And when you're dealing with teenagers, those things can, the line of what's a lie and what's an excuse can get blurred real quick and real easy.
Yeah.
Sometimes teenagers can lie so easily and so much that they almost start believing the lie to be the truth. They're going to be 5 minutes late for a team meeting because the red light out here is awful. And I'll be the first to admit it's awful. But don't, because you left the house 10 minutes after you were supposed to, say, oh, the red light got me. Yeah. That's an excuse. Leave 10 minutes earlier, and the red light's not an excuse. All right. And, but we get that one a lot from our players. And then the last one of ours, which again, it is hard to pinpoint sometimes, but it's real easy to come back when there's an example of it's not working. It's got to be a good teammate. Got to be a good teammate at all times. You got to be a good teammate. And when they're being a good teammate, sometimes you don't always see that. I pick up a stool for my teammate when he leaves and he forgot to put his stool up, things of that nature. We don't always recognize that one, but it's real easy to point out when somebody's being a bad teammate.
Yeah.
Not doing what they're supposed to do. So those are the standards that we live by and we preach to our kids on the daily, really.
I think a good difference between standards and rules are standards are typically the positives that you want to see. Mm-hmm. Don't lie. There is a negative there. It could easily be, right? We're going to tell the truth. We're going to tell the truth with everything that we do, and even with that one, be a good teammate. The opposite is, hey, don't be a bad teammate.
Or, don't be a jerk.
Yeah. Don't be an idiot. And so, but when you have this list of rules, those rules, once they're broken, there has to be consequences, and most
Yes.
most of the time, those consequences need to be laid out ahead of time, and then you are, unless you want to just completely lose any type of respect you have of your players, you are held to those consequences. The great thing about having standards is you can take every situation, you can take them each individually,
Yes.
and
With
not
the circumstances that surround them.
right.
You know, kid was late for practice. Well, why was he late for practice? Well, he came home and his, God, this is awful, but something happened health wise for mom or dad, and he had to rush one of them to the emergency room.
Yeah.
And he got him back home in time just to get to practice 30 minutes late. And the kid busted his tail he couldn't communicate because he's sitting in the emergency room with his parents. So yes, if I had rules, you'd punish that kid because he missed the practice.
That's right.
Well, you're not going to start next week. Well, you're going to be suspended for a game. Well, why did he miss? What was the reason behind it? And that's what we always try to take every situation in hand with the circumstances that created it, and then come up with a punishment that fits.
My favorite consequence is towel pushes. You put a towel on the ground, you push it, because I don't like consequences where it takes my time, or I have to give an assistant coach or a manager the time to count or anything. If I say you have a down and back, they go fast, it hurts. If they go slow, it hurts more. And so towel push to me is my favorite. Again, with the beauty of the standard is, and nothing's set in stone with that, is consequences can escalate. This is your first time, you're rarely late, quick down and back, you and I are good. It also takes the emotion out of it. This is your fourth or fifth time. Listen, you got 10 towel pushes. At some point, you're going to learn this lesson. But that's just a personal thing. My favorite consequence, but then I think the brilliance in just having these standards rather than rules set in place.
I love what you said about towel pushes too. I hadn't really ever seen that per se as a quick consequence for something, but I went to a practice here at our local Division I college in town, UNC Asheville. Mike Morrell, Shaka Smart's former assistant, is now the head coach there. And Coach Morrell and I've got to be really good friends since he came into town and took over the program. And I went to watch a handful of practices at the beginning of the season this past year. And he didn't give me the practice schedule ahead of time. He wasn't really giving me any detail. My assumption was, after what I saw, that their thing they were trying to identify was lack of boxing out. So it was like about every 2 or 3 minutes, you just see a random kid go, and he would grab a towel and he would push that towel length to the floor in Kimmel Arena there. And I started picking up on the pattern. It's pretty much every time he missed a box out, and one of the coaches noticed it. Well, the practice still kept going.
Yeah.
The drill work kept going. You seeing this kid over there doing a down and back with a towel push, and it was like,
you can't cheat it. You can't cheat it. I mean, it hurts. Again, if they can go as slow as they want or as fast as they want, it's powerful to me.
Absolutely.
One thing I hear a lot about is you can't build confidence in players, or you can't create confidence in players. And I think that's an important distinction. Like, we can't necessarily, confidence comes from their preparation and then what they think about all day. And so once they've done those things, we can help build their confidence or add to it. So what are some ways that you build confidence in your players?
Well, to the point you just made there, yes, there's certain kids are born more confident than others. And sometimes when you have those kids that aren't as confident, or they're quick to turn on themselves when things go bad, you've got to figure out different ways to motivate them, get them confidence. So you can build confidence to a certain degree. Some kids have it, and there ain't a thing you can do to stop it, and it don't matter. And they've got it oozing out of them to the point of ad nauseum at sometimes, but really, I think for us, I think the big key is we try to develop the kid, the personal set of the kid. Then we try to develop the skill set of the kid. And then along the way, we put them in situations that benefits them, that highlights their abilities, that we don't put them in situations where they aren't good at it. That's not what they're going to be doing. And I feel like our system, it would be a very fun system to play, and we're up down the floor. We're not afraid to shoot threes. We shoot a lot of threes. So we play very fast. We scored 100 points a couple of times this game. I think we averaged 83 points a game this season. That's pretty high average for high school.
That's awesome.
So, the opportunities are there, and like I said, we try to put as many kids as we can in positive situations where they can be the best player they can be. And then from a mental standpoint, I try to be very simple with the tasks that I ask them. And those are varied, but depending on the player and who it is. If I've got a role player who's maybe 10th, 12th on the bench, I'm not going to ever go out there and ask him, "Hey man, I need 15 points out of you tonight." That's just stupid. That's not going to happen. But what I can do is say, "Look, hey, go out there and get me a rebound or two. That's all I need you to do." And if he can come out of that game and never score a point, but he's giving me a rebound or two, and I can celebrate that when he does come out, you can see that kid's confidence skyrocket. And then a lot of times is praising some of that in practice.
Yeah.
When you see the behavior that you want, if you praise it and make a big deal out of it, as simple as some things may be, you'll see that kid's confidence skyrocket.
Well, one thing I heard you say is that you have to protect. Sometimes you have to protect their confidence too.
Mm-hmm.
Like
yes,
the ones
absolutely.
that are ultra confident, and typically they're there because of one, either how they were raised, experiences of success they've already had early on in their life. Maybe they've put in a ton of time, and so they've earned the right to already be confident. But there are those players, like you said, that are 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. How many times in practice do we hurt their confidence more by not protecting it, by putting them in situations, where they're probably not. I don't like the end of, personally, I don't like the end of practice drill where line up, everybody shoot free throws, you make it, you don't run, you miss it, you run.
Because, ADHD, I despise that drill.
Yeah, because you got Johnny, little Timmy up there that is a 10% free throw shooter. He knows it. His team knows it. They're all ready to run. Now, you could argue, well, that needs to inspire him to get better and to get in the gym more. Okay, like keep trying that logic. I think we put them in positions either in games or in practice that we can help build on what they do well.
I think one aspect, especially for older coaches, it may not be as much with newer coaches, but I guarantee you most coaches are guilty of this. You want some continuity, which I understand, and you want to build that camaraderie with your 5 best players. So you put your 5 best players in practice, and then you're constantly almost berating 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Give us a good look. Come on.
Yeah. Why can't you? And you're like, you set them up for failure, so they have no confidence. So we try to. I never hardly ever put the best 5 together. I might do it in a walkthrough situation where we're at the beginning of practice. Hey, look, this is a set they ran last time. Let's talk about how we want to adjust their ball screen coverage here, whatever, and we'll walk through it, and then we'll literally start practice. Or something along that lines. If we're teaching a new set play, if we're going through our set plays, we're divided up and there might be the best player in our league averaging 20 a game on his same team in that same action as a kid who ain't never going to step foot on hardwood, and he'd be lucky to average 1 point. But we do it enough and fast enough to where but then the kids feel confident and they get confident from that.
Yeah.
And I think one of the other keys to it is when you got that kid who is pretty confident, but he can also, I was this way, turn on himself pretty quick too with a mistake or a turnover, is recognizing that and not just each kid's different. Some kids need the kick in the butt and get into them. Other kids need you to come up and put your arm around them and go, "You're okay.
Yeah.
Keep shooting. You're fine. It's fine." And I think I find myself more nowadays using that approach. The kids probably think I'm yelling at them all the time, but I think if they really thought about it and made a tick mark chart of every time I was, that I talked to them, they would find that way more times I've got my arm around them going, "You're fine. Relax. You're okay. Quit worrying about it. You're a good shooter. Shoot. I don't care that you missed it. Shoot." Things of that nature. So it's a matter of putting the kids in situations where they feel they can be vulnerable and it's okay.
Yeah. I think you're in a good position where kids are willing to make mistakes and push themselves in practice without fear. I'm not talking about, we always say mistakes from effort. I'm not saying mistakes because you're not focused. That's an issue. But mistakes when you're trying to do what you're being asked, you're pushing yourself a little bit outside your comfort zone. That's a really good place to be. One thing you said that I love getting to do is because sometimes I pick up little things that and realize things about myself that I haven't before. And you mentioned that you don't have your starting five together all the time in practice. Somehow along the way, I've gotten into that habit of maybe because I want them to build some chemistry and continuity together in practice so that when they play in games, they know where each other's at and stuff. But I do agree there is something to maybe we all get better 1 through 10 or whatever. If you're splitting them, you challenge those better players a little bit to help elevate, the rest of your team. That's a good point.
I know in college, that second five, potentially maybe even your third five. Most colleges probably have 15 players. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
So if you went first team against second team, you could probably get a pretty good look. But in most times at the high school level, if you went your best five and put your second best five against them, you're probably not going to get a good a look as what you're going to see from your other team. All right. And number two, I think you get to a certain point in time where kids are kids. And they're really fragile in certain aspects, but they're like, every day we come to practice, you put the best five over there. They kick our butt. This drill's, we're going to 10 and it's 9-1, 10-1, and we're getting slaughtered. There's no fun in this for me. It's never competitive. So innately, they're going to shut it down. They're not going to go as hard.
Yeah.
So by dividing up the teams, make them as equal as you can possibly make them. Different this year, and so this doesn't have to be an every year the same way thing. I have always in the past, every single day they had different teams, and it was posted in a locker room. They saw it. This past year, I put them in what was pretty equal teams. And they got really competitive with each other, almost in a fun way. They're talking junk to each other going up there. We got blue as our primary color. The flip side of our jersey was gray. So it was like they'd go up the stairs, man. Gray's kicking that ass today. Y'all don't want none of us, that kind of stuff. And you're like, this is awesome. And then they'd get in drills and, like blue would win 3 in a row. And you could see kind of Gray over going, man, this ain't right. And they're going, yeah, Gray, where y'all at now? You ain't talking nothing now. And it's really brought a competitive nature out in our practice. So we left it blue and gray the whole season, the same group. And they got really competitive with it. They would talk about it, but all during the school day. Coach, when we get to, whatever shell drill version we're doing today, I'm telling you, put blue on defense first because we're wearing them out.
Nice.
And it was awesome, So
yeah.
And I tried, and I just get so caught up and I want to do the competitive cauldron stuff where you assign point values and do all the winning stuff. But sometimes I get lost in the shuffling. Oh crap, I haven't given them point values for the last 5 drills. But the competitive nature is what you're trying to bring out.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when you put your best 5 out there and you're asking a group of kids who are lucky to be on the team to go out there and compete with a group, you're just asking for a bad problem.
That's a good point. So 25 wins this year. How many losses?
5.
So you didn't have to go through defeat this year nearly as much as a lot of teams
but we have.
did. But maybe you have in the past. I'm always interested in hearing from different coaches what their approach is to, this could be you've just lost the game. You're going to go into your locker room or it's the next day at practice. How do you handle defeat with your team?
I think the biggest thing is keeping it in proper perspective as to what it is. It's one game in a step, in a journey, in a process. We get so worked up sometimes about that, like that game on a Friday. Well, it's game 8. We still got 15 games to play, in the regular season, let alone how many we might get in the postseason. So let's not lose our mind over that. Let's learn our lessons and make sure we don't feel like this again. But we got to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. I know this almost sounds somewhat like a cliche, but we've lost. We've I think our program's a pretty solid program, but we've lost our fair share of ball games. This group that just won 25 games, I made a very difficult decision 2 years ago that the current group of seniors, I brought 6 sophomores up. That was them. I brought 4 freshmen up. So of our top 12, that your top 13, I had 10 freshmen or sophomores playing, and
it's a young group. Yeah.
And we lost.
Yeah.
I thought I was coach of the year. We won 8 games, and I thought we did pretty good considering the youth that we had out there playing. And we just had to constantly be reminding them that it's a part of the process, that we will get better, we will learn from it. And here's where I say this is a difficult thing for a lot of coaches. Even sometimes when I know it's not my fault, I think a lot of times especially in high school, you have to take responsibility. Guys, that one's on me, and we want to come in there and slam the door in the locker room and kick lockers and start raising hell and saying it's all their fault. Your effort was awful. Not their effort's awful. Their effort's awful. But in the end game, I didn't prepare you. My job as the leader is to prepare you. Your focus was horrible tonight. Your effort was god awful. I'm not even going to get into the X's and O's and the fact that you didn't rotate. But ultimately, guys, that's on me. I didn't do my job as a leader to help prepare you to win this basketball game efficiently. Mark my word, that will not happen again. You will be prepared for the next game. So it takes some of the onus off of them to the sting of the loss. But that's tough. I mean, I know we've all been there, and you come in there and you're going, my best player who averages 20 scored 12 tonight and had 9 turnovers. He was awful. And, and you're like, what did you do? Did you go spend the day with your girlfriend and not think about, but it's not like anything like that. You're going to have to take as a leader. And one of the things I think you were going to ask me is some leaders that I respect or looked up, but Extreme Ownership from Jocko Willink is an unbelievable book, an unbelievable thing about leaders taking on that responsibility. And while ultimately you are responsible as a leader, yes, somebody else may have made a mistake along the way, but ultimately you're responsible as the leader for making sure that things are happening the way they did. So to come in and scream at the kids after a loss, I understand it. We're all guilty of it. We all do it. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I don't do it. But I think ultimately you got to put some of the blame, most of the blame on yourself.
2 things. What was the book called?
Extreme Ownership.
Okay.
Jocko Willink. Extreme Ownership.
Got to check that out.
And Jocko has a podcast and some things, and he does some really good stuff there too. But the Extreme Ownership book, I derive a lot of things from our military. Love it. I'd never served, but I have such tremendous respect for those that did and do, and to put themselves in harm's way. But you learn a lot from. Those are the best leaders in the world, and they have to be.
Yeah.
Because people's lives are at stake.
Yeah, it's not just a sport there. Yeah.
No, exactly. Yeah. People's lives are at stake. So if they don't lead the correct way, if they don't lead well, people die. People don't just lose ball games; they die. And I've always respected that and learned from it, and try to read as much as I can. And I'd heard a lot about Jocko's book, and I got it in the whole first chapter. I mean, I was literally sitting on the edge of my seat reading a book, and I'm not a reader. Yeah. Trust me, I am not a reader. But it sets the stage up for the leadership lesson of ultimately the leader's got to take responsibility for it, even though it might be somebody else's fault. And if you haven't read that book, I would highly recommend it. And it will, if you take it to heart, it will reshape a lot of things about the way you think about leadership.
Yeah, no, that's good. I thank you for sharing that. When I think back to post-game talks where I was very animated, angry, and hostile, rarely do I feel good about that. Like where
you got something off your chest, all right, but you may create more damage.
Yeah, but years later, when I think back, it's more shame and regret than anything else. Tyler Costin had a great. He does a
great job too. Love Tyler.
His idea is completely eliminate post-game talks, bring them together, tell them that you love them, that you love watching them play, and let them go eat pizza, see their friends and family, get home. Especially sometimes we forget, it's 9:00. They probably still have a little bit of homework. It's a Tuesday night. We got school in the morning. These aren't college kids. Mm-hmm. But then Coach Drew made a good point that what we think we saw in the game is rarely accurate. Like the fact that we're thinking that we can from memory replay, and we really have a good look at what happened in that game. Go home, watch the film. I don't know how many times I've been so fired up and I thought, man, we just stunk it up tonight. And then I watch film and I think, stat it that night. And I think, you know what, we're a lot closer than I thought we were. And my next talk with them is more of a positive note, which I think, what do they really need? Do they need a nut? They already think they stink. They lost. Do they really need me hammering them again? I just think those are reminders for us that we need.
We put the 24-hour rule into place for our parents. Don't call me 24. It's a 24-hour rule. But I think that, again, talking about the two-way street that we mentioned earlier, that 24-hour rule was for us too. as
Yeah.
coaches, and I probably still do too much. But I tell our kids, as soon as that game's over with, we're going through the handshake line, wave bye to your mama, sprint to the locker room. I'm on 24-hour rule. I'm gonna try to give you some logistical stuff. What time's practice starts tomorrow? What uniform we're wearing if there's another game, whatever. And then I'm gonna send you home. And I still say I probably take 2 minutes
Yeah.
to say, didn't play well tonight, guys. We're gonna figure it out. We'll be okay. And I still don't even know if I'm not saying too much. My daughter plays Division I basketball, and I'll be honest with you, I'm a coach. I've been coaching for 30 years, and this was happening sometimes, and I was going, really? The game's over, win or lose. They go in the locker room, they're coming out immediately, and I'll go, well, what did coach say? Didn't see coach, never even saw him. And like, really? Yeah, the manager came in and took our uniform, did whatever. I did to do ice therapy or whatever, and some of the coaches were in there saying, make sure y'all are at workouts tomorrow. But we'll have a team Zoom or a team meeting or a team something tomorrow, and we'll go over it. So y'all don't really we don't talk after the games in that regard.
I think that's a good place to get to.
Yeah.
Where we want them to compete their tails off and be in the moment, and then when it's done, and give everybody time to decompress, and it takes some time. Like I think that's wise. So you just mentioned you've been coaching for 30 years, which is,
You believe that?
yeah, it's incredible. And I'm always honored to get to talk
You
to
see all this, right? It's white.
So mine's working its way up, is what you're saying. What would you do? This is one of my favorite questions to ask any coach, but especially when they have the level of experience that you do. What was one thing you do differently if you could start over today?
Be myself. I was very fortunate in my life. I was given an opportunity that, quite honestly, in today's society, today's world, with the way background checks and this, that, and the other, I would never legally be able to do. I was 18 years old, was a senior in high school, just finished my playing career. It's about this time we were getting ready to go to spring break. My high school coach was my next door neighbor. He was basically my father figure. My father was not in my life, not in my picture. So my basketball coach was my father figure. And we're walking out to the parking lot one day after school, and he says, "What are you doing this summer?" And I said, "I don't know, laying around. I don't know." And he goes, "Seriously, what are you doing this summer?" I said, "I truly don't have any plans. I'm not doing anything." "Why?" And he says, "Well, can you coach our JVs at team camp?" And I said, "Are you kidding me?" "Oh, done." And that was like literally leading, I don't even want to say something bad, but I'm telling you, you turned an addict loose. That's all you did. And I loved it. And I've been hooked ever since, and I've been coaching ever since. And then I worked for him for 7 years as his assistant, JV coach, and then varsity assistant for a few years. He retired. They decided to give the head job to someone else, which I get. I didn't like it at the time. Thank God that happened now. I was very fortunate enough to then go work for, at the time, arguably the best basketball program in all of the state of North Carolina. It was a rival program to ours, and it was right down the road. And they were philosophically opposite of us. They were zone press, fall back into a matchup zone, intricate, detailed sets on the offensive end. We were where the school I was at, which is the school I'm back at now, full court, man-to-man, run and jump trap, 100 mile an hour on the offensive end, no sets, no real, continuity. We're just going to go.
Yeah.
And that coach was considered probably one of the icons of our state. And I got to spend 4 years under his tutelage and learning a completely different style of basketball than I had known. So I got both ends of the spectrum. Well, then I get the call to be the head coach. And I come back in, and I tried to be both of them. I tried to act just like both of them. And I tried to, what would he do in this situation? And those influences are always going to be there.
Yeah.
And I imagine you're probably you could look at your things, your mannerisms and things you say, and they're a lot very similar to Coach Drew. Am I right?
Now, yes.
Now,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I spent the first 3 years being a head coach trying to walk like them, talk like them.
Yeah.
My practice schedules mirrored their practice schedules. And I quickly realized while their influence on me is tremendous, and I am going to always be somewhat them, I still got to be me. You know, and once I got comfortable in my own skin of being me, it was a whole lot better. And I was more comfortable with I could accept losses and things. I was like, well, Coach Sizemore wouldn't have lost that game, but I did. And why am I? I'm like, Coach Sizemore may have lost the game just as much as I did.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of stuff. So I think
to
it's important.
any young coach listening, like I think it's important. Rick Torvitz said it takes 10 years to figure out who you are as a coach, to find out. And it's kind of funny just doing your math right there. Like you're right about it, that 10 years. I mean, I'm year 15 overall, 9 as a head coach, as a varsity assistant. Like you're right on the money. I was trying to be Dave Bliss early on, which, you know, got to apologize to some players for some of those things, and then later on, and with some life change, was a lot more like Coach Drew and spoke like him. But you know, you want to go back and you want to apologize to some of those players and teams that you had where, as you were finding your way, I mean, we had some talent here at Faith early on, but we lost because of me. You know, I was trying to either fit a system into with, you know, fit players into a system rather than adjusting to who we have in personnel, or trying to be and emulate somebody so much. But then that's my main point, was to those coaches that are sitting here like, okay, well, if it takes 10 years, what do I do? Nothing. Fail,
Grow,
experiment, get better.
Absolutely.
When you mess up, let it go. Try to care about them more than you do even now. But just to help encourage them, because
to let your hair down and be you. If
you know,
here's a great example. Coach Sizemore, the gentleman I worked for at the rival school that I went and worked for, was had a personality coming out of his ears. He was unbelievable, but he wasn't a boisterous, hyper. He was very much more stoic and calm. While there was this internal passion, you could clearly see it. He wasn't boisterous and open and hyper. So, you know, those first couple of years, I'm trying to be Coach Sizemore. And I'm as you can probably tell from watching, I'm hyper. I'm ADHD. I got, you know, I'm wiping spit off sometimes, and and I tried to be too much him, you know, and I just, once I learned how to be me and then use the things that Coach Sizemore was really good at, in game adjustments and keeping the focus on the big things, and you know, not being afraid to change course if it suited your personnel. Coach Crook, who I played for, was my father figure. Learned, oh my God, greatest teacher of man defense I've ever been around in my life. But if you said zone around him, he's punching you, because that's communism. You don't play zone. So, you know, and he wasn't going to change ever. It wasn't. We're playing man. By God, I don't care. And you know, that's why I say you have to learn to be you. And I spent the first couple of years as a head coach going, and is Coach Crook going to be mad at me? Is he going to like disown me because I'm playing a little bit of zone? And then I kind of got to the point where it's like, I got to be me, and I've been brought up in two systems now, and I'm trying to blend the perfect worlds and do what's best for our program and our kids. And we're just not good enough to play man defense on some of these teams. We're just not.
Yeah.
And
I think you nailed it right there, though, is that ultimately our job, besides, I mean, mentoring and developing young men into who they're going to become, or helping them get there, that's ultimately what we're doing. But within that, we're also trying to create a team and give them a way of playing that'll help them win. And sometimes you can't try to fit that into what expectations from another coach or another program, or just because something works. I think comparison is the thief of all joy. And we tell players quite a bit, don't compare yourself to others. But how guilty are we as coaches of comparing ourselves to people we've worked for before that had a lot of success or did things a certain way? We look at rival programs and we think, golly, what are they doing? And why am I falling short? I just think we have to be careful as coaches with comparison.
I'm gonna say something that's actually kind of embarrassing. I don't think I've ever really spoken of this to anyone, not even my assistants. But there have been times early in my career, I don't do it now. I still use this, but I have every single practice schedule from both of those two coaches their entire coaching career. Both of them, when they retired, gave me their filing cabinets. Every piece of information you could possibly speak of, I've got it all. That being said, there have been times and we're not being successful, we're not winning, and I would think about which system we were probably more involved in that year, and I would think of that coach, and I would go, what we're at December the 15th, and where would Coach Crook be at this time? And I would go look at 3 or 4 years worth of practice schedules and kind of see where he was at December 15th, and I would see some of the stuff he was doing, and I'd go, we're doing that, and I would literally carbon copy and do that practice schedule from December the 15th, 1993. As opposed to looking at what we're doing in December the 15th, 2017.
Yeah.
Or early on in my career, it'd probably been more like 2008, but still, it's just, I had to take those concepts and learn. Now, into those young coaches that might be listening, it means a hell of a lot when one of the two of them reach out to me and say, hey, caught your game last night, or I'm coming to the game tomorrow night, really like the way you kids are playing, or, a little tough last night on this. You probably need to start. And I love those conversations. Those are phenomenal conversations. But I don't allow those conversations to change who I am. And that's what I was doing early on in my career.
Yeah. I know so many coaches, especially in your area, follow you and are fans of you. They think they know you, but after the speed round, Coach, they're really going to know who you are. You ready?
I love this.
All right. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Oreo cookies and cream, however you want to say that one.
Nice. For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
Can I get on a soapbox, or you got me a quick speed round here? Shot clock. And I get sick of all the reasons why people tell me I can't have one. And I want to start hearing all the reasons why we can have one.
That's right. Focus on the positives, guys.
Absolutely.
Texting or talking?
In this generation, you better learn to do both, but I prefer to talk. But unfortunately, kids don't like to talk. So sometimes you can get to the ultimate end of what you wanted quicker with a text.
Yeah, meet them where they're at, and they text a lot more. And I think the best response I heard to that is who. It depends on who it is.
That's a great one. Absolutely.
Favorite holiday?
It's not Christmas, believe it or not. I don't know why it's not, but it's not. I would probably say favorite holiday for me is probably Thanksgiving.
Okay. The food? You like the food? Family get together?
I don't know. I know this sounds crazy, but it's the start of basketball season.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's a relatively short one. You're not having to go out and buy, 6 months worth of gifts to prepare for it.
That's true.
Family does come in typically and things of that nature. But, to me, college basketball, all the, Maui Invitational starts and, all these great preseason tournaments that I love. So, I get jacked up around Thanksgiving because it is the start of what I love more than anything other than my wife and children.
Those are all good points. If you could travel back in time, what period would you go to?
I've always thought about, William Wallace and Braveheart.
Yes.
I don't know if I was tough enough to live in those days, buddy. I'm gonna be real honest with you.
I see. Coach Drew said it too. He would like to go back to see some of the battles and things, and then but he quickly said, well, I don't want to be in them. And
there you go. So I'll be the flag bearer that sits in the back and displays the flag.
If you could somehow just be there, but in no way participate, that'd be good.
And truly, honestly, if I were saying that honestly, with the time that I would love to go back and live, I would love to go back and live and or be a part of it. 1700s when our country was being formed and the things that our country went through. I love those patriotic type movies, and I've gotten really into the I don't want to say conspiracy theory type movies, but those type of things and how the government runs and all the secret stuff. And is there a presidential book of secrets?
Oh yeah,
all those type of things. I would really love to know all that kind of stuff.
All right, 2 more. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
0.
No energy drinks at all, or
I have what I'm talking about, Advocare Spark.
Oh yeah,
and it is like my coffee. I put a scoop in every morning, and then that's what I've been drinking on. I put it in my 32-ounce tumbler, and I drink on it all day, and it is essentially my coffee. Yes.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Last one, probably the most important: Godfather or Star Wars?
Star Wars, without question.
Nice.
Star Wars.
The Force is strong with you.
Absolutely. I think the one of the first movies I can ever remember going to see at the drive-in was the original Star Wars. And sticking the little radio in the window, sticking on the door, and watching the original Star Wars, and fell in love.
Love that.
So yeah, definitely.
Well, Coach, this is I mean, you and I, we've had a fun time earlier or previously of talking about shooting.
Absolutely.
You're just from even our time today, you're one of those coaches that I could just sit and listen to for a long time. And I want to appreciate you just being authentic and real and giving up your time today.
Oh, dude, you have no idea how honored I am to be on your podcast. I think you do one of the best jobs, have one of the best podcasts out there. I'm preaching to the choir because if people are listening to this, they think the same thing. You know, I know the glare is terrible. And that's why I said I didn't get to use my good camera, but from your Kelvin Sampson episode, most of the stuff you see written up the top came from the Kelvin Sampson episode.
How awesome was he, man?
Coach, unbelievable. Coach with one eye open and one ear closed.
That's right.
And the other one I love, and I got it highlighted and starred right there because I think it's something that we try to really live by is we must be the gym rats. If we want our kids to be the gym rats, we got to be gym rats. And I've taken that to heart. And if I don't listen to your podcast, I never hear that.
Wow.
You know, and I'm just thank you for what you do and the work you put in. You know, I've always been a Coach Drew fan on some level, but obviously the success he's had over the last couple of years, you know, going to winning the national title and doing the things. But then you're starting to see the bleed off, the assistant coaches that are going out and getting jobs and talking to folks like you. And you realize there's some substance behind it. It's not just he got lucky and recruited in a good group of kids to come in and win. There's something to it. And so I thank you for all of that and exposing the world to some of the good parts of Baylor basketball and you and Coach Drew. And, you know, like I said, I'm just absolutely honored. I can't believe you actually asked me to be on here. But it's phenomenal, brother.
Stuff.
You do a great job.
Coach.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi Podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.